Hello everybody, Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas. I'm going to do a little video this morning I think you'll find interesting. I created a Facebook post 10 days ago and somebody shared it this morning and I think it's interesting. I think it's important, fact-filled, and basically what it is, the name of it here is right here. It says Deed History, Faircircle Cul-de-Sac, Midland, Texas. Okay, and basically the idea, the concept here is obviously somebody that used to live in my little small cul-de-sac of 9 homes knows something about $1 million underground homes put in, tunnels, rigging homes for, with hidden access, and then being used for, burglaries, theft, murders, extortion, human trafficking, and all the many crimes that have gone on here, day after day after day. I mean, that just makes sense. As somebody that used to live here back when it's installed, I was told it was installed back in I told the underground facility was installed in 87 and the home was built in 82. Okay. And so anyways, that's really what this is about, is to look at all the, deed history, the previous owners of these homes here. Okay, so here on the right hand side of the screen is Google Earth. It's a free download. And you'll see that I have my address in there, 3802 Faircircle. And here I'm going to show you how this works. I'm going to click search. Many people have seen this before. Okay, and you can see it here. Okay, here's the United States, there's Texas, there's Midland, and zoomed in, and then all of a sudden it just zooms on down. Okay, you just scroll the mouse and it zooms it in. Okay, so there's the big Home Depot store behind my home. Here's the secluded truck unloading lane. Here's my home where I was ambushed and shot. Actually, right here is where I was ambushed and shot. Right here is where it's believed one of the 4 underground homes is located. And one thing that Google Earth gives you is allows you to go back to old maps, to historical maps. There's a button up here that shows historical imagery, right? Okay, so when you do that, then you can go back here in time, and so I can go back to 2009, 2013. Here's 2011. And 2011 is interesting because that was about 6 months before I'm shot. You can see where the tunnel ditch was cut coming from the back of Home Depot aimed at my house. I believe the people that are going to the oil show party, that that was the tunnel that they used to get to the underground home that's over here, and that's where the young girl was murdered. So anyway, it just gives you an idea of where I'm located. And what I really want to show you is this cul-de-sac. Okay, this is the 9 homes. It's a dead-end street. This is Whittle Way, and this is Faircircle, and so there's 9 homes in this cul-de-sac, and that that'll give you an idea. We're going to go back and look at them here in a minute. But what I want to start with is read here, and you can probably just listen to this, and you're going to find this super interesting because there's some big names that are in here. I mean, this is really going to be pretty cool. Okay, I said there are 9 homes in the Faircircle Cul-de-Sac, and they're numbered 3800 to 3811. I live in 3802. Obviously, somebody who used to live here knows something about tunnels and underground homes being used for burglary, theft, and murders, right? I've researched the past owners all the way back to the builder and found some interesting things out. Okay, and to see what you can do is you can go to the Midland County Appraisal District. That's midcad.org, and you just put an address and it'll tell you who owns the home, and it'll tell you who used to own the home. That's where you get the deed history. And then, but if you needed further information, which I did, you go to the courthouse and look up the records. So I did go to the courthouse and get records. Okay, so I'm gonna expand this. I said the builder was a now defunct company named Tabor Construction, and they bought these lots from Abbott Development. One person told me this was somebody related to Governor Abbott, but I have no confirmation on that. That Abbott sits on the board of the hospital here in Midland, which is interesting since it's proven my x-rays were faked. And, and the ex-wife had said, the secret is a group of doctors are killing people for profit, etc. The listed business address for Tabor Construction was 3217 Mark Lane. And I noticed that a previous owner of that same home, and I went to like I said, go to the appraisal district, and you just looked up that address, okay, was the ER doctor from the night that I was shot. And come to find out, he was the brother-in-law of the ex-wife that had told me the secret is a group of doctors are killing people for profit. He was there when it was proven the x-rays were faked on the night I shot. I wondered if that doctor knew these homes was rigged prior to me being ambushed and shot. I had filed divorce 5 days before the murder attempt, okay? And so what I'm saying here is that the listed address for the builders of these homes, Tabor Construction, was at 3217 Mark Lane, and another person that owned that home was the ER doctor brother-in-law, okay? A vice president for Tabor Construction was a guy named Aaron Geibel, who died in the famous Clayton Williams plane crash on Valentine's Day, 1990, when Clayton was running for governor of Texas. Clayton is a famous billionaire oil man that died recently. Mike Lawhon's mom, Susan Tennis, worked for Clayton Williams before she moved to Fort Worth. Mike was said to have died there and here. And I've showed that before, where the previous young homeowner died the week before the 2008 oil show started. And, the Odessa American posted death notice, says he died in Fort Worth. They posted a second death notice 4 days later, said he died at his residence, which was here. And that's what confirmed what a neighbor told me, Marilyn DeLuigi. She's told me Mike died in this house twice. Okay. Another person that died in that plane crash was a guy named Randy Kidwell, and he was married to Suzanne Conaway. Suzanne goes on to marry U.S. Congressman Mike Conaway, or, former U.S. Congressman Mike Conaway, and her late brother, John Lejeune, lived across the street from my home before I moved here at 3811 Faircircle, okay? So the brother-in-law of Congressman Conaway, and, and if you remember when they poured concrete, I was back here with Homeland, showed them where I believe this human trafficking murder tunnel is, showed Homeland was in July 2nd, and then 2 weeks later they poured concrete, okay? And then I made a video of that. It went viral because, here's human trafficking, or here's DHS that's supposed to stop human trafficking, and they're pouring concrete to cover up capital murders for human traffickers. Is what's going on. Is what it looks like anyway. And then 2 weeks after that, a surprise, Conaway announces his retirement. Well, come to find out, his brother-in-law owned this house before I moved here, John Lejeune. That's what I'm saying. I got a feeling that real strong feeling that the reason that Conaway retired was because of what's going on here. Okay. A previous owner of my home, Brandy Merrill Price, was living in that home when I transferred here in 2008, okay? I wondered if that home was still in the Conaway family, as it's now owned by a Wilson family, and they had a sibling named Marsu Wilson. I'm going to show you more about that in a minute, but here's my home. So a previous owner of my home was Brandy Merrill, okay? When I first moved in, Brandy was living in this home, what I call the Conaway home. Congressman Conaway, late brother-in-law, used to live here. So that's where Daniel Price and Brandy lived, but she used to own my home, okay? And so I told Congressman Conaway my story in 2015 on a town hall meeting, conference call, and then met and provided his staff with evidence about the crimes here. He then sends me a letter advising me to contact the U.S. Inspector General Horowitz, which I did over 100 times, okay? The IG investigates allegations of corruption in federal departments such as the DEA and FBI. Okay, I had reported a suspected tunnel to the DEA 2 weeks before I was ambushed and shot by somebody under my home, and they never came to my home or investigated. So that's something that the Inspector General should be investigating, right? So Conaway did right by sending me to the U.S. Inspector General, but it looks like for whatever reason the IG is not doing their job. And I've contacted the FBI many times with the feeling they're helping cover up the crimes and murders here. This should be an FBI case, since it's clear these crimes are going on all over the nation. Homeowners documented all across the nation, important move in the attic. I'm ambushed and shot with burglar alarms going off in the attic. Okay. One of their jobs is to investigate public corruption. And when I first met the FBI in 2012, the secret police were still secret. You can't get more corrupt than that, right? I mean, the first known secret police in the history of America, literally. Okay. The IG, the Inspector General, never called me back, and I called and emailed them around 100 times. I have the emails to prove it. Congressman Conaway had sent me on a dead end while the crimes against me and the many other victims continued. And really what I believe they're trying to do was terrorize me into moving from my home, into selling my home, which is a violation of the Hobbs Act, right? Because this is America and it's my home, okay? On July 2nd, 2019, I met Homeland Security at the Home Depot store, and I showed them where I believe the human trafficking murder tunnel was located, going from there to my home and used for the oil show party murders. I showed you that. 2 weeks later, the ground was dug up and concrete was poured there, but I got this on camera and that went viral. 3 weeks after that, Congressman Conaway surprise announces his retirement. I said that a minute ago. It also looks like the east next door neighbor at 3801 Faircircle had a tunnel entrance in his backyard, which I found on Google Earth. This was put in around the time that it's believed Mike Lawhon was murdered here, and then taken out after I started making a point of it on Facebook around 2015. That's 3 years after the murder attempt on my life. I would hear people and see flashlights out there in that backyard in the middle of the night where I believe that tunnel entrance was located. It's only about 25 feet from where it's believed the underground home in the backyard is located. Maybe that neighbor knows something about Mike's murder or the murder attempt on my life. You know, that's something for law enforcement to investigate. In December 2015, I made a video of 2 dump trucks full of dirt being unloaded in the backyard of the neighbor at 3801 Faircircle, and wondered if that was covering up something underground there. This video was posted online too. That was the home of Bruce Paget or something like that, a locksmith. The home directly across the street from me at 3803 used to be owned by Ken Sliger, a commercial director for my company, DCP Midstream. His group took care of our booth at the oil shows. So I've suspected that he may have information on the underground home in my backyard where it's believed the oil show parties were held and where that young girl was murdered in 2010. But he wasn't living there when I moved here in 2008. He had already moved. Ken was laid off from my company after I survived the murder attempt, along with others in my company that I'd previously reported to my supervisor, because I believe they knew who were breaking into my home before the murder attempt. Okay, so here I worked for this big gigantic gas company, half owned by Phillips, right, DCP, and and I had reported 5 people, and to my supervisor that I believed knew who was breaking into my home. Okay, and of course they're calling me crazy and all that, and then 6 months later I'm ambushed and shot. They almost murdered me in my home. Now I'm crippled for life. Well, they put me on disability and they laid all them people off, including that supervisor that I'd reported to, Dane Wiggins. Marilyn DeLuigi lived there at that same home across the street, 3803, when I moved here, and she was the person that told me twice that Mike Lawhon died in this house, but his death certificate says he died in his mom's house in Fort Worth. Marilyn told me that her son was really worried about what happened here, and I wondered if he had some connection or knowledge. It looks like a tunnel was cut going across the street to that home, and I have pictures of that too. And I'm going to show you these pictures in a minute. The home on the corner at 3811 has been owned by several people, and I've also wondered if that home had a connection. I recorded a guy on the phone talking about it along with drug users who used to live there. I heard an overdose call there on my scanner one night. A couple of weeks after the murder attempt on my life, a guy living at that home, Joe Martin, was in a car where another guy was shot and murdered. I wondered if that murder was connected to the crimes here too. So that's the home at 3811 on the corner, and so it was probably a couple of weeks after I was ambushed and shot. This guy that lived on the corner, he's sitting at home, and there were the guy next to him was murdered in a car here, and I wondered if that murder was connected to the crimes here. Okay, my west next door neighbor, which is right next door on the other side at 3804 Faircircle, Gwen, reported a burglary in 2014, and she saw a guy in her home who the police said lived at the home at 3811. That's the one across the street on the corner. And that was where it was believed the drug users were at, or whatever. I believe she told me the footprints, I believe she told me the fingerprints came back to one of the Martins that lived at 3811. I wondered if that home might have an underground entrance that was being used, her home next door. I used to see somebody get dropped off there each night, and then a few minutes later, we hear somebody in my attic. And she worked nights at the time, okay? And she was divorced. Obviously, one of the 4 underground homes that I was told about is in my backyard, but that still leaves 3 others somewhere, and I suspect that they're connected with tunnels. But the problem has been the blatant police corruption and lawlessness going on here, which is assisted by our press that won't tell the public what is going on. I've long said one news story telling that homeowners all over reporting people in the attic after Mr. Webb shot, with people going off in the attic, or Sheriff candidate Joe Lozano was recorded saying Painter was hanging out in these underground homes here. Multiple people document saying underground homes here. You can see it on Google Maps. If the press would have just notified the public of this, these crimes and murders would have been stopped a long time ago. I mean, they've been a party to this as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, one of the 4 underground homes that I was told about is in my backyard. I just read that, okay? So you can look up the history of these homes at the Midland County Appraisal District, okay? And I just took here I'm gonna go here. Okay, this is my deed history map. Okay, so I went to the appraisal district, and what I did was look up an address. Like, here's my home. Okay, here's my home, Buddy Webb. And then I looked up the previous owner. So here, the one owner before me was Mike Law. He's the one that, the young man that died 2 weeks before I bought this home. Okay, and so you can see the deed date on it was November 2008. That's when I bought the home. Okay, and so it was Brandy Merrill that sold the home to Mike Lawhon. And see, I have an arrow coming down here because Brandy Merrill married Daniel Price, and they were living in this home right here. Okay, at what I call the Conaway home when I first moved in here, because the brother-in-law of Mike Conaway, Governor Conaway, used to live here, John Lejeron, the late John Lejeron. And then you can see it was sold to Ward Daniel Price, who was married to Brandy Merrill, then Cody Prindle, and now there's a William Wilson there. Well, Suzanne Conaway and John Lejeron had a sibling named Marsu Wilson, and I wondered if William Wilson is related to Marsu, and that would mean this home across the street is still in the Conaway family. Okay, so that's one of the things. Back to my home on the deed history for my home, you can see here I owned it, you know, or when I bought it, you can see I got it from Mike Law in 2008. Brandy Merrill, she probably refinanced here. Got her divorce, I think is what happened, and refinance. But here, Morris Kurt, that was a teacher here. His kids online were real rude to me, even threatening. I've got some print screens about that. I suspect that they might know something about the crimes and murders underground facilities. But the original owner of this home was a guy named Randy Offenberger, and he was a pioneer engineer, okay? And he got a sprinkler permit in 1985. I was told the underground homes were finished in 1987. And of course, this home was built in 1982, you know? And so possibly even a connection, maybe even a connection back to Pioneer, you know, oil company. And that's unknown. This next door neighbor, you can look at this one, and anybody can look up this information. It's public information. You just go to MidCAD and look it up, okay? So the next door neighbor is Eli Vargas, okay? And you can see where he bought the home from HUD back in 2002. That's right. And then you can see the other people back there. David Markland was on there, and the Guadalupe Creo in 99. And so as the deed history on that home. On around at 3801, this is the locksmith that I was telling you about. And Bruce has been a long time resident there. And that's the one that had the 2 dump trucks of dirt dumped in the backyard of his home. They moved the fence, and dump trucks come up filled with dirt and dumped in the backyard. I got a video on it, but I posted on my YouTube channel. But anyway, interesting date was 87, and that's when it was believed the underground facilities were put in. Okay. 3803 Faircircle, directly across the street. Okay, this was the home that where Marilyn DeLucia used to live. Remember, I said a minute ago, she told me, my son's really worried about what happened to your house. And it made me wonder if her son didn't have knowledge or some kind of connection. Okay, but you know, prior to that, Ken Slager lived there, and Ken worked for my company. He was the commercial director, and his group took care of the booth at the oil show, which is interesting because it believes the oil show parties were in my backyard, right here across the street. You know, I like Ken, nice guy. I like his family too. Okay, and often talk to him online. And then so Marilyn then sells it to Dustin Kirkland, and that's who lives there now. And he's a real nice guy too. Okay, Nick Todoro is a lawyer here. He lives here at 3805, and then a previous owner since there from 2001 was Donald Neil Lewis. I really don't know much about that, but you know, there's family live there. Okay, Freddie Haltom here. Okay, and I think he is a gun guy. You know, I think he teaches gun safety classes, whatever. And interesting, you know, I think I was shot with a special bullet. You know, plastic pellet-filled bullet. You know, I bet he might know something about that kind of ammunition. You know, not everybody would know about it, but you know, it's not something only he'd know about either. When I Googled him, I found out that he used to be a truck stop preacher, you know, and I thought that was interesting, you know, because behind my house, you know, where in that secluded truck unloading lane, it was like a truck stop where the truckers were showing up 24/7, staying a little bit, leaving. You know, this is the middle of the night, holidays, the store's not open, nobody was there. They wasn't manned back then, and you know, and it was pretty clear, you know, they were using it like a lot lizards, the people in the attic were going over and meeting the truckers, and maybe they're, you know, I figure it's sex deals, child sex trafficking, you know, or even drug deals. I don't know, but you know, anyway, you know, I don't know if he's still the truck stop preacher or not, but I just Googled that and found that. Okay, and then this house here, which we already talked about, that was the Conaway home. Okay, and so we went over that, and then here, right here on the corner, that's the 3811 house. That's the house where the guy called me on the phone, and he was suggesting that the people lived in this house had a connection. Okay, well, and so you go back and you see here's Thomas Martin here, and there's no more Martins, and then they sold it to LeDuc here. Okay, and this is older information, but they were long-time people here, that the Martins lived in this house for a long time, but they only moved after the murder to my life. And really what happened was Gwen right here, a Vietnamese lady, she was a pharmacist, worked nights. Okay, in 2014 she saw a burglar in her house that actually talked to her. That burglar told her that they knew her ex-husband, and this was the house I was talking about a minute ago, where I'd see cars park over here, and then a few minutes later I'd hear somebody in the attic of my house. I wondered if this house didn't have an underground entrance or whatever, and she was gone, because she wasn't working nights. But anyway, she sees a burglar in her house, police are called, whatever, in 2014, and then she tells me that the police did fingerprints, all that, and they said it was a guy from this house. It was one of the Martins that had broken into her house over there. So I didn't know. I just wondered, maybe there's an underground entrance in this house, and the Martins were coming over and getting into it. But I don't know that. I just know that that's what I sold. But after that happens, when the Martins sold this house, and this house has had many owners since then. There was LeDuc, and every time I turn around, there might be renters in it even now. I don't, owned by a realty company. I don't really know. And so let me go to the pictures here. I think that'll be the next thing. Okay, these are the comments, because I took every one. I'm going to just show you. Okay, here's where I found out. Here's the warranty deed right here in 1982 that showed where Abbott Development sold the home to Tabor Construction. And so that was done in February of 82. Okay, remember, like I said a minute ago, one person said that Abbott Development here was related to Governor Greg Abbott, but I don't know that. And I Googled him and found out here's the Midland Memorial Foundation Hospital, H. Eugene Abbott, and he's on the board of the hospital. Okay, which is interesting because, it was at the hospital where where secret lab tech user interface, it's believed to have faked my x-rays. I know my x-rays are fake, but I just believe it was that secret lab tech that did it at this hospital right here, and this guy sits on the board of it. Okay, and so that's basically who sold these lots here before these homes were built, and we're talking a long time ago. That was the 80s, right? The listed business address for Tabor, which is all this is red. I'm just going to show you because I want to, go online and I find this. Okay, so the homes are built by Tabor Construction. I found that by going to the courthouse and going back in the records. Okay, and that's where I found that address, 3217 Mark Lane. And then I thought, oh, just let me look up the deed history. So I'll go over here to the property details, 3217 Mark Lane. Oh, wow, my brother-in-law used to own the same home as the builders of my home. Remember, the brother-in-law was my ER doctor on the night I'm shot, and the ex-wife I'd filed divorce on 5 days later. But she had told me the secret is a group of doctors are killing people for profit. And like I said, and it's proven this doctor was there when them x-rays were faked at the hospital. There is no doubt about them x-rays being fake. There's multiple proofs. Okay? This company's out of business, forfeited existence since 2002. And then Aaron Gobble, I think he also used to work for Clayton Williams, and he died on the famous Clayton Williams plane crash. Died on the plane crash and on Valentine's Day. That was during the election for governor of Texas. It was big news, national news. Okay, I said I testified under oath that being told the secret. Okay, and here I'm going to show you. This was from the 318th Judicial Court. This is the transcript on at the protective order hearing, December 18, 2013. And and I'm talking here, and I said she said the secret is a group of doctors are killing people for profit. Well, what she never told me the entire time we was married was that her brother-in-law was a doctor, and come to find out he was my doctor on the night that I shot. Well, she did tell me after the fact, after, and she come over and she seemed upset about what had happened to me, and I mean, she really did seem upset, and she was, pointed out, I wouldn't have known her, her brother-in-law was my doctor, and she's the one that gave me hints that my x-ray or my medical records were faked, and I went down there and found and got the records and proved it. Yes, they were, but it was the ex-wife that had told me her brother-in-law was my ER doctor, and she's the one that gave me the hints that my x-rays were faked. Okay. And here, a vice president for Tabor was Aaron Galbo, who died in the famous Clayton Williams plane crash on Valentine's Day. I said that, millionaire. Mike's mom worked for Clayton Williams, okay? And this here is just an old news story. Candidate now aboard his plane crash kills 5, okay? And it's showing these people. Here's Randy Kidwell. Randy Kidwell was the first husband of Suzanne Conaway, and it was her brother, John Lejeune, that lived across the street from my house, okay? And then Aaron Galbo here, he also died on this famous plane crash, and he was director of Clandestine National Bank back in back when that happened in 1990, okay? And also here, I went on Suzanne Conaway, actually at one time asked to be my Facebook friend, the wife of a U.S. senior congressman, okay? So she knows who I am. She was my Facebook friend, but then I posted some stories I guess she didn't like, and she unfriended me. But absolutely, Suzanne Conaway knows what's going on here, and her brother-in-law used to live across the street, right? And remember that Mike Conaway announced his retire 2 weeks after I got that video of concrete being poured behind my house. A previous owner of my home, Brandy Merrill Price, was living in the home when I transferred here in 2008, in which I've said all this before. What I'm going to show you, here's the obituary for John Lejeune, the brother-in-law of, this is Suzanne's brother, or Mike Conaway's brother-in-law, okay? And I'm just showing you some of these people. Here's Gary Click. I think he got 30 years for some sexual, I seen it in the news. But here's Marsu Wilson. That's what I was saying earlier. There was a sibling they had named Wilson, and the current owner of that house at 3811, the Conaway house, is named Wilson. So I've wondered if that house is still in the Conaway family. Maybe there's a tunnel under it. I don't know that, and I showed you that. This is the deed history for 3811, and then I'm showing the deed history for my house and the relationship where Brandy Merrill lived here at the Conaway home when I first moved here. These are people that law enforcement can talk to as, do you know something about these homes being rigged for to murder one homeowner after another, because that looks like what they're doing. They murdered Mike Lawhon, then they tried to murder me. Actually, there's Aaron Packelhofer. He asked me if I knew the names of the 4 people that had been murdered, died in my house. That's incredible, okay? Like I said, I spoke with Conaway I told him my story at a town hall meeting over the phone, and then he invited me to meet his staff here in Midland. And I went up there, talked to him, I provided him a whole bunch of evidence for an email, and then I got this official letter from Congress of the United States. And, so that's kind of neat, right? January 22nd, 2015. And, and he says, thank you, whatever, this is not my problem, etc., etc., etc. I suggest you contact the U.S. Inspector General Horowitz. And Horowitz is still the U.S. Inspector General. And like I said, I did over 100 times. And, with very, very valid information, right? We had that group of police that were secret for 11 police secret for 6 years. I had to offer a reward to get them identified. Come to find out 6 of their names wasn't on the police report. 5 of them were under my house on that night that I'm shot by somebody under my house. Well, I'm going to the FBI, and the FBI is just blowing me off, is basically what's going on. And their job is to investigate public corruption. Called the DEA 2 weeks before I'm ambushed shot, reported suspected tunnel, and then I'm ambushed and shot. Some people wondered, maybe somebody at the DEA set me up to be murdered because I reported a suspected tunnel and they were involved with it. That kind of makes sense, right? So that's what the U.S. Inspector General should be investigating, And then here, talking about where I met Homeland behind the Home Depot store, showed them where the human trafficking murder tunnel was at, right here. That's where it's believed the tunnel was going in my backyard to one of the underground homes where the young girl was murdered. I'm back here behind Home Depot with Homeland July 2nd, okay? 2 weeks later, they're pouring concrete back there, okay? And, I believe what that was tampering with evidence in a capital murder, which would carry the death penalty, okay? I got that on video. It was a viral video. And then all of a sudden, July 30th, surprise announcement, Conaway announces he's retiring. Look at that. You know what happened. Once this video goes viral that Homeland's pouring concrete to cover up human trafficking murder tunnel, Conaway retires, And then 3 months later, the U.S. Secretary of Homeland retires, and 6 days after that, U.S. Secretary of Energy Rick Perry resigns. I think what's happened, multi-billion-dollar oil companies were leaning on these people like the Secretary of Energy and Secretary of Homeland going, you need to cover this up. We don't need the public finding out about us raping and murdering little girls in underground facilities, And so they poured concrete, and then they get caught on camera, and that's embarrassing, right? When you're caught in a capital murder, okay? So here we go. I mean, that's speculation, but I'm thinking that's probably what happened. Okay. Here, these are Google Earth maps where we were at earlier, the historical maps. Okay. And this is that neighbor's house next door on the east side, 3800. Okay. And what I'm showing is in the backyard. That's where it's pointing here. And I just read these little captions for you. This was taken about 7 months before Mike Lawson was suspected of being murdered here, and the suspected tunnel entrance in the neighbor's backyard was not installed. That's what I'm pointing to. It's not there. So it's time-stamped in March 08 that it's not there. But it is there on the next picture because, you know, they only fly over ever so often. So it is there in 09. See it right here? That's the suspected tunnel entrance in the neighbor's backyard. And right here is where it's believed the underground home is located, okay? So in between this time, Mike Lawson dies and I move in and this tunnel entrance gets put in, okay? So somewhere in between that day, the entrance is put in the neighbor and this is time when Mike died. That's what I said there, okay? So I wondered if this neighbor over here that put the, you know, that had the suspected tunnel entrance might know something about Mike dying, right? You know, I mean, I think that kind of makes sense. The suspected tunnel entrance can still be seen in the neighbor's backyard on October 2014. This is 2 years, you know, after murder, almost 3 years. Here's where the underground home is. Okay, here it is. It's still in the backyard. So it just time stamps it. We know it's still there. That's important because it gives us a time frame because here by April 2016, it's gone. So they took it out, okay? And that's where I was saying that at night, I would see flashlights out there and hear people talking in the middle of the night right here, you know, and you could hear people, you know, you knew it was connected to where they could get up to into my attic. And I believe that also to the underground home in the backyard, you know. And so really think that has a connection, suspected tunnel entrance in that neighbor's backyard. In December 2019, I made a video of 2 dump trucks of dirt being unloaded in the backyard of 3801. You know, that was across the street at the locksmith's house. How a huge pile of dirt across the street. They literally moved had to break apart the fence to get the dump truck to dump these huge. And I wondered if they wasn't filling up something underground there. If not, we should have a mountain 10 foot tall in that backyard of dirt. And there's no mountain of dirt back there that I know of. Okay. The home directly across the street from me at 3803 used to be owned by Ken Sliger, commercial director. I said that. I want to show you this picture was taken on the day that Marilyn DeLuigi was moving out of this house across the street at 3803. She's the one that told me twice that Mike Lawson died in my house. And what I was showing you here was across the street. See right here? Looks like a tunnel was cut going from my home to that home, okay? I mean, and, you know, of course, now they've repaved it. It doesn't look like that, but that's what it did look like, you know? So I wondered if it wasn't a tunnel going across the street there, okay? This is the home at 3811, owned by several people. Remember, that used to be the Martin home, and it was said to be that it was somebody in that home had broken the home across the street at 3804. At least that's what Tulane told me. And I took this picture one day because I'm going, whoa, look at all them bags of concrete right there. Wonder what that's for, you know, if it has something to do with underground access, whatever. I have no idea, you know. And then just the deed history on that house there, which I already showed you that. You know, now it's been multiple owners in that house. But I recorded a guy one night on the phone that told me, that mentioned specifically this house. There's the call, called block call. This guy calls me and tells me about this home at 3811 Faircircle. Okay, so we talked about it on that phone call. You know, I think he knew something, okay? And maybe them people did have something, okay? And here Brown was meeting with Goen, his passenger Martin, and this was the shooting that happened 2 weeks after I'm ambushed and shot. One of the, Joe Martin that lived at 3811, he's sitting in a car, and the guy next to him is murdered, okay? I wondered if that murder wasn't connected to the underground homes, crimes, and murders here. I don't know that, okay? And then my west next door neighbor at 3804, Tulane Gwen, reported a burglary in 2014. She saw a guy in her home who the police said lived at that home at 3811. I believe she told me the fingerprints came, and I've already said that before, and this is an email to myself. There's the date in August 2014 and talking all about that. And there's a lot of information here. In the front yard of this home is the leftover man-sized tunnel pipe, okay? I've made videos that talked about that before. I wondered if that pipe wasn't put in, as part of this construction. Construction. There's also a pile of red bricks in the backyard, and asked her where they come from. Oh, from that fence back there. And we know when you look at the fence back there, between Home Depot and the house, that there's a row of bricks missing at the bottom. It looks like where it was tunneled under. Okay, and then and this house was interesting anyway because they had a terrarium, a glass tin terrarium at the front of it where there was dirt, but in the middle was this concrete pad, and I thought, boy, that'd be a perfect place for a tunnel entrance. And like I said, that was her home. It's where she saw the burglar that she told me that the police told her it was one of the Martins. Okay. Here we go. Here's the map I show all the time, okay? And this is the one all the people documented saying tunnels and underground homes are here. Here's the Google Maps, and here's the suspected tunnel, the human trafficking murder tunnel that's believed to come from the Home Depot store. And I've told that in many different videos. Okay, I'm going to just skip that one. Here, you can look up the deed history of homes at the Midland County Appraisal District at www.midcat.org. Anybody can do that on the internet. You just click, just put that in there. You go to property address, okay? And then you put a street name, and this is for Midland. Like I go Faircircle. I can even do partial name, search, and there's the list of the homes. And so that's where I got the deed history. Here I am, Buddy Webb, okay? And then I could drill into Buddy Webb, okay, here. And then when I scroll down, okay, there's my deed history, okay? And there's my date, okay? So that's where I built that from. I just want to show you, that's where I built this map from, okay? And then finally, a guy named Aaron Packelhofer asked me if I knew the names of the 4 people who've been murdered and died in my house, okay? Obviously, Aaron knows who the names are. I don't. And obviously, I was supposed to be the 5th. They're literally killing one homeowner after another. I mean, absolute lawlessness. Interesting, I found out, just happened to find out, and this is a God thing, is that Aaron Packelhofer got a grant from the city, okay, of $72,000 to start up his dream business. And I actually made a recent video called Hush Money because the question has been asked if they wasn't using taxpayers' money to silence him, because he had told me, this was after he had asked me about, do you know the names of the 4 people who had been murdered, died in your house? The other part of this is that his friend was telling me that he was a mason here. So maybe masons here in Midland know something about the underground homes. Anyway, I'm done with that. I thought you might find that interesting. A lot of that is for law enforcement to investigate to stop these crimes and murders that's going on here. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.